Tonight, I invite you to travel back, not simply in time, but into the very heart of an ancient city on the edge of disaster. A city that, for centuries, lay buried beneath silence and ash, its voices lost, its secrets entombed. But tonight, those voices return. This is not the story of crumbling walls or lifeless ruins. Tonight, I want you to feel Pompeii as it once was: noisy, colorful, messy, hopeful, and heartbreakingly human. You've seen the documentaries, maybe heard the chilling facts. An entire city frozen in a moment, its people caught by surprise. But what if you could stand with them? What if you could hear their laughter, taste their bread, see their world through their own eyes, and witness their final day unfold, hour by hour, heartbeat by heartbeat? That's the journey I want to share with you. For the next few hours, you won't just be a spectator, you'll be a citizen of Pompeii. But before we step into these ancient streets together, let me ask you something that always makes these stories even more special to me. From which city in the world are you watching tonight? And more importantly, what's your favorite food? I'm obsessed with food, truly. Whether it's the simple flatbreads and olives that a baker in Pompeii might have for breakfast, or the elaborate feasts of a Roman noble, or just that one dish from your hometown that always brings you comfort. Tell me in the comments below, your city and your favorite dish. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and honestly, your answers inspire the flavors and details I weave into these tales. So, don't be shy, share with me. Now dim your lights. Picture the warm darkness before dawn. Smell the faint aroma of baking bread and wood smoke, mixed with something metallic and wild in the air. Feel the ancient stones beneath your feet, because tonight you are not a tourist. You are a neighbor, a friend, a stranger in Pompeii, and this city's last night will unfold around you. Before the sun even brushes the horizon, Pompeii is alive with whispers and shadows. In a cramped servant's room behind a grand house on the Via dell'Abbondanza, Marcus, a young slave, awakens with a start. The straw under his body is damp and cold, but he barely notices anymore. He sits up quietly, rubbing his eyes, careful not to disturb the other servants. Every day in Pompeii begins before the world notices. Marcus learned long ago that the quickest way to survive is to stay invisible, to become just another moving shadow in the house of his master, Gaius Julius Severus. Far above, wrapped in linen and silk, Livia, the mistress of the house, stirs as the first hints of morning reach her window shutters. She listens to the familiar sounds, the scratch of a broom in the atrium, the muffled clatter of breakfast being prepared, the muted laughter of the younger slaves. Livia is respected, envied even, but she has never felt free. Her days are carefully measured. Visits to the forum, supervising the kitchens, letters to distant relatives, rituals to the household gods. But beneath the surface, her thoughts twist and turn like the winding streets outside. She longs for a different life, or maybe just a single day without duty. Across the city, in a low, smoky bakery, Gaius kneads dough with strong, flour-dusted hands. The oven's heat burns his skin, but he finds comfort in the rhythm. Press, fold, shape, repeat. He's already worried about today's grain shipment, about rising prices, about the rumors of strange earthquakes in the countryside. But for a moment, the only thing that matters is the loaf in his hands. Upstairs, his daughter Elia sleeps soundly, wrapped in a thin wool blanket, unaware of her father's quiet anxieties. Soon, she'll wake to the smell of bread and the city's music, the street hawkers, the neigh of horses, the endless chorus of life. Not far away, on a shaded veranda, Lucius, a retired centurion, gazes at the sky. His back aches, and the old wound in his leg throbs with the promise of rain or worse. He's seen too much, battles on distant frontiers, friends lost to violence and fate, but nothing unsettles him quite like the mountain that looms over Pompeii. Today, as every day, Lucius studies its dark slopes, searching for any sign of trouble. He tries to tell himself it's nothing, just smoke and stories. Still, old instincts die hard. The streets are already stirring. Vendors arrange their stalls in the forum, the city's heart. Children chase each other between columns. Mothers argue with fishmongers. Priests light incense at the temples. The marble statues catch the first golden rays, casting long shadows across the mosaic pavements. In the gardens, fountains splash softly, and the scent of rosemary and crushed thyme drifts on the air. Elia, the baker's daughter, wakes to a city that is, for her, a kingdom of endless possibility. She rushes to the bakery window and breathes in the morning. Today, she will try to catch pigeons in the public square, maybe beg her father for a honey cake, maybe watch the mosaic artists at work. For her, every alley is an adventure, every doorway a secret. Back in the servants' quarters, Marcus hurries through his chores, fetching water, sweeping dust, polishing bronze lamps. He listens, as he always does, to the gossip of the kitchen. Who saw whose wife in the baths, what the magistrate's son did at last night's feast, why the dogs have been barking so much at night. Underneath it all, there's an undercurrent of unease. Something in the air, a heaviness, as if the city itself is holding its breath. Livia, meanwhile, stands in her private garden, watching the light shift on the flowers. She runs her fingers over the petals and tries to remember what happiness once felt like. Her husband is already gone, off to a council meeting about new taxes and building repairs. Livia sighs, considering a visit to the market, maybe a stop at the temple to ask the gods for, what? A change? Or simply a sign? Gaius the baker pulls his first loaves from the oven, marveling at the crisp, golden crust. Elia appears at his elbow, eyes wide and bright. "Papa, can I have the biggest one?" she asks, already knowing the answer. He laughs and breaks off a corner for her, the heat and love baked into every bite. Outside, the city's noises grow. A donkey brays, merchants call out, distant hammers ring as craftsmen start their day. Lucius sets off toward the forum, leaning on his walking stick. Along the way, he nods to neighbors, shares a quiet joke with a fruit seller, watches as a line of slaves delivers amphorae of wine to the wealthier homes. The city is a tapestry, every thread important, every face familiar. As the city fully wakes, the routines of its people intertwine. Chores, errands, greetings, hopes. Pompeii is alive, humming, unaware that the clock is ticking down. For now, life is ordinary. For now, the world is unchanged. But the mountain watches, and by nightfall, nothing will ever be the same. So, before we take another step into this day, I ask you again, where are you watching from? What's your favorite food? Share it in the comments, and let's honor the lives and dreams of Pompeii together, across centuries and continents. Tonight, we walk with them, and tonight, their voices are yours. As the first true light of morning spills over the rooftops, Pompeii becomes a living mosaic. Every street is a channel for stories, every doorway a portal to a different world. Today will be like any other, or so everyone hopes. The city bustles with the particular kind of noise that only grows where people feel safe. In the villa of Gaius Julius Severus, the slaves move like clockwork. Marcus, careful not to catch Cassia the cook in a bad mood, quietly scrubs a mosaic floor in the atrium, eyes fixed on the glimmering tiles beneath his brush. Overhead, sunlight pools in the impluvium, reflecting gold and blue onto the whitewashed walls. The master of the house is already gone, business taking him into the heart of the city, but Livia remains, drifting through the rooms like a wraith in linen. She checks the gardens, her son's room, the statue of Venus in the corner, anything to anchor herself. Marcus pauses when he sees Livia. For a brief second, their eyes meet. She nods, a small, almost invisible gesture. It means he's done well. That's the highest praise he can expect. Still, he clings to it as he moves back toward the kitchen, passing Cassia, who shoves a basket of figs into his arms. "Take these to the bakery. Tell Gaius they're the best from my own tree." Across town, the bakery is alive with movement. Gaius hurls more wood into the oven, sweat trickling down his brow. The heat is nearly unbearable, but this is his world, and he rules it. His daughter Elia, now fully awake, sweeps the floor with a kind of youthful energy that makes the old men at the door smile. She sneaks a handful of raisins from a bowl, earning a playful scold from her father. Gaius only pretends to be stern. In truth, he lives for these mornings. The smell of yeast, the crackle of bread crust, the laughter of his daughter. Just as Elia finishes sweeping, Marcus arrives, shyly holding the basket of figs. "From Cassia," he says, eyes low. "She says they're the best in Pompeii." Gaius laughs, thumping Marcus on the shoulder. "Tell her I'll be the judge of that." Elia giggles, offering Marcus a piece of still warm bread, their hands brushing for a moment. The boy flushes and stammers a thank you, then hurries away. For a second, Elia watches him go, curiosity sparking in her eyes. Then she returns to her sweeping. Meanwhile, in the forum, Lucius the centurion makes his slow progress. His limp draws sympathetic glances, but he shrugs them off. He pauses at the steps of the basilica, looking out at the crowds. Traders hawk their wares: fish from the bay, fresh vegetables, linen tunics dyed purple and blue. A group of boys, barefoot, wild, dare each other to leap over the fountain in the center of the square. Lucius smiles, remembering a time when he too had been young and fearless. He overhears a merchant grumbling about the strange tremors that shook the city last week. But Lucius shakes his head. Old Pompeii is full of talk. The ground always moves here, he tells himself. At the Temple of Apollo, Livia climbs the steps, her white tunic shining in the morning sun. She pauses before the columns, pressing a coin into the hand of a beggar and whispering a prayer for her family's safety. The priestess greets her, eyes lined with coal, and together they light incense at the altar. The smoke rises, mingling with the distant cries of street vendors and the laughter of children playing in the temple courtyard. Livia's prayers are quiet but urgent, shaped by the invisible burdens she carries. "Protect my son," she whispers. "Protect my house. Give me a sign that things will be well." As the morning deepens, the routines of the city accelerate. In the baths, steam billows through marble halls as men and women gossip, argue, and conduct business. In the narrow streets, bakers, butchers, and potters shout over each other, each certain their goods are the finest in the city. Elia, taking advantage of a break, slips out to watch a group of mosaic artists at work, fascinated by the way tiny stones become birds, flowers, and gods. She asks 100 questions, her curiosity drawing smiles from the grizzled craftsman. Marcus, carrying a load of fresh bread back to the villa, moves quietly through the crowded streets. He keeps his head down, careful to avoid trouble. But even in his caution, he cannot help but notice something odd. The birds in the trees are quieter than usual. A dog refuses to leave the shade, panting anxiously. The air itself feels heavier, as if the day is waiting for something. In the forum, Lucius listens to a magistrate argue with a merchant about water rights. The merchant insists that the aqueducts are running dry. Was it the earthquake last month? Lucius finds himself watching the mountain again, noting how it seems to shimmer in the heat. "Old man's nerves," he mutters to himself. Still, he cannot shake the feeling of unease. Livia leaves the temple, crossing the marketplace on her way home. She pauses at a flower stall, running her fingers over a bunch of violets. The seller, a woman with gentle eyes, smiles. "They'll bring you luck, Domina," she says. Livia smiles back, buying the violets and tucking them into her sash. She notices Elia watching the mosaic artists and, for a moment, envies the girl's freedom. They share a brief glance, two lives separated by birth, fate, and the walls of the city, yet united by the same sunlight and the same silent worries. In the bakery, Gaius counts his coins and mutters about the price of flour. His assistant brings word of a festival planned for next week. "We'll need more loaves," Gaius says, already calculating how many sacks of grain to order. Outside, Elia darts by, laughing as she narrowly avoids a runaway goat in the street. As the sun climbs higher, the city's pulse quickens. The clatter of carts on stone, the cries of peddlers, the scent of roasting meat and ripe fruit. It is a symphony of everyday life. Yet beneath it all, a subtle current of tension winds through the morning, invisible but real. In the shadow of the mountain, the people of Pompeii chase their fortunes, mend their wounds, share their meals, and dream their dreams, unaware that this day, like any other, will soon become a memory buried in ash. But for now, the sky is blue, the city is bright, and hope, for one more morning, still belongs to the living. By midday, Pompeii is alive with noise and movement. The sun stands high above Mount Vesuvius, its light reflecting off whitewashed walls and red-tiled roofs. Shadows are short and the streets are hot, packed with citizens jostling for space and shouting to be heard above the chorus of daily business. It is the hour when everything in the city pulses with energy. When bakers rush to sell the last loaves, children dodge through the legs of merchants, and the heat bounces from stone to stone. Elia wipes sweat from her brow, balancing a basket of bread on her hip as she hurries down the Via dell'Abbondanza. The crowd swirls around her. A procession of priests in white, a pair of painted women laughing too loudly, a one-eyed dog scavenging for scraps. She pauses outside the Macellum, the market, to watch a fishmonger haggle with a senator's steward. The fish stinks, silver and slick on the table, but the steward only wrinkles his nose. "My master will not pay for yesterday's catch," he snaps. The fishmonger, undaunted, holds up a fat mullet. This one's as fresh as your master's wig. Smell for yourself. Ilya stifles a giggle. In the crowd, she spots Marcus carrying an urn of water, his tunic patched and his steps careful. He sees her, hesitates, then offers a shy wave. For a heartbeat, their worlds, slave and baker's daughter, touch. She gives a tiny wave in return, a secret smile. But then Kasia, the cook from the villa, barks at Marcus to hurry. The moment vanishes into the noise of the square. Elsewhere, Livia moves slowly through the Stabian baths, accompanied by her friend Antonia. The steam softens the aches in their bones and the lines on their faces. They sit on marble benches while a servant massages scented oil into their hands. "You should come to my garden party tomorrow," Antonia says. "My nephew is visiting from Capua, a fine young man with land." Livia offers a polite smile, but her mind is elsewhere. She is thinking of her son, away on business, and the dull fear that something. She can't say what is wrong. In the baths, the women gossip about love affairs and the emperor's taxes, about a merchant who vanished after last month's tremor, about the strange way the air tastes today. Lucius, the centurion, sits under an awning at the forum, sharing wine with an old comrade, Publius. They talk of campaigns in Germania, of scars and cold rivers and the taste of home. Lucius's leg throbs, but he hides it. "Rome remembers her sons," Publius says, raising his cup. Lucius chuckles. "Only if her sons are useful." Their laughter is cut short by the arrival of a messenger from the city magistrate. "Centurion Lucius, there's trouble at the northern gate. A cart overturned, oxen everywhere." Lucius rises with a groan, promising to return. As he limps away, he feels the eyes of the crowd on him, respect mixed with pity. In the back alleys, Marcus delivers a message for Kasia, then lingers in the shade behind the temple. Here, Pompeii is different, rougher, sharper. Boys gamble with knucklebones. A toothless woman offers fortunes for a copper coin. Marcus watches the city and feels a strange dizziness. He is tired, yes, but the air seems to shimmer with more than just heat. A low rumble shakes the ground, so faint he wonders if he imagined it. The gamblers freeze, listening. Then, as suddenly as it came, the tremor passes. A chorus of nervous laughter follows. "The mountain burps again," someone jokes. At the bakery, Gaius swears at the price of flour, then at the lazy apprentice, then at the oven that never seems hot enough. He is in the middle of a tirade when the wall rattles, shaking a jar from the shelf. It shatters, flour puffing into the air like smoke. "Jupiter's balls," Gaius shouts. But Ilya, arriving with the bread basket, sees the fear behind his anger. "Just a tremor, father," she says, steadying the next jar. Gaius grumbles, but he eyes the mountain through the window. It sits, silent, indifferent, the clouds twisting around its summit. All across Pompeii, the city pauses. For a moment, everyone listens. To the distant barking of dogs, to the creak of wood beams, to the small shifting noises of a city unsure whether to panic. But soon, routine takes over. The market haggling resumes. The children chase pigeons. The baker returns to his dough, the senator's wife to her gossip, the slaves to their chores. Yet, in the private corners of the city, the tremor leaves ripples. Livia, walking home with her violets, quickens her pace. Lucius, after calming the oxen at the gate, finds himself staring again at the peak of Vesuvius, noting a new wisp of smoke curling into the sky. Marcus, carrying water through the sunlit streets, feels the weight of something unsaid. A pressure in the air, a warning in his bones. As the afternoon advances, Pompeii resumes its usual song, but the harmony is off-key. Friends bicker more sharply. Merchants look anxiously at their buildings. The birds in the trees, usually noisy, have gone silent. No one wants to admit it, but the whole city is waiting, listening, bracing for something they cannot name. In the villa, Kasia prepares the midday meal, a stew of lentils and pork, seasoned with a heavy hand. Livia picks at her food, appetite gone. "The gods are restless," Kasia mutters, half to herself. Livia forces a smile, but her thoughts churn. She glances at her household, her mind replaying old superstitions, omens and bird flight, unlucky dreams, the warnings her mother whispered long ago. At the bakery, Gaius closes the shutters against the afternoon glare. Ilya kneads dough, hands white with flour, while outside the heat builds and the city pulses on. In the distance, Vesuvius broods, waiting. The sun's relentless march pulls Pompeii into the restless heat of afternoon. Shadows lengthen beneath the colonnades, and a haze of dust drifts lazily above the streets. By now, the forum thrums with activity. Merchants, magistrates, gossiping matrons, beggars with hollow eyes. The city moves to a rhythm as old as its walls, but beneath the surface, something is shifting. Even the pigeons seem to sense it, their wings flaring in nervous bursts as the air grows thick and heavy, full of the promise of a storm no one can see. Elia's feet ache as she weaves through the crowd, her basket empty after the morning's work. She lingers near the statue of Fortuna, tossing a crumb of bread onto the marble base. "For luck," she whispers, an old superstition, half remembered from her mother's lips. She hopes the goddess is listening. She hopes something is. Nearby, the market's clamor rises. A fishmonger shouts about the day's catch. A spice merchant fans herself with a woven palm, and a group of children chase each other, laughing, past a line of grim-faced soldiers. At one stall, Marcus struggles to lift a heavy amphora for a wealthy customer. The jar slips, nearly crashing to the stones, but he manages to steady it at the last moment, his muscles trembling. The customer, a merchant with gold rings, clicks his tongue. "Clumsy. You'd be whipped for that in my house." Marcus bows his head, biting back his pride, but in his chest a spark flares, a mixture of anger and something darker, fear at how close he came to disaster. Across the forum, Livia walks in measured steps, her tunic immaculate, her posture regal despite the stifling heat. A procession passes. A wedding, perhaps, or a festival she's forgotten. Petals rain down from a basket, and for a moment, the air is full of scent and color. Livia allows herself a small smile, but the moment is brief. The crowd swallows the procession, and Livia's thoughts return to her son, to the letter she wrote that morning, to her worry that the world is more fragile than it appears. She pauses at a jeweler's stall, admiring a delicate gold pendant shaped like a crescent moon. The craftsman bows, eager for a sale. "A charm, madam, for protection, guaranteed to ward off evil." Livia almost laughs. If only it were so easy. But she buys it anyway, fingers trembling as she fastens it around her neck. Meanwhile, Lucius stands watch at the northern gate, sweating beneath his armor. The overturned cart from earlier still blocks the road, oxen lowing nervously, their breath steaming in the heat. Lucius commands a pair of slaves to clear the mess. He scans the horizon, nothing but distant fields, the sun glaring off the slopes of Vesuvius. Yet the hairs on his neck rise. Something about the mountain unsettles him today, though he can't say why. He's fought in battles, faced death and chaos, but this is different. A silent threat impossible to fight. Back in the alleys, Marcus slips away from the market, ducking into a narrow lane between two tall houses. Here, the city is different, quieter, shaded, with the cool scent of water from a hidden fountain. He finds a moment of peace, crouching beside the fountain's worn rim, splashing his face. As he drinks, an old woman appears beside him, her face a tapestry of wrinkles, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. "The gods are angry today," she mutters, staring at the mountain. "We should not be here." Marcus offers a nervous smile, but the old woman's words stick in his mind. Gaius, the baker, curses as a fresh batch of loaves burns at the edges. Distracted by the tremor, he misjudged the fire. He hurls a charred loaf at the wall. "Damn this oven! Damn this heat!" Elia returns in time to see her father's rage, but she says nothing. Instead, she helps clean the ashes, her own thoughts drifting to Marcus, to the strange silence that fell after the midday tremor, to the way her father's hands shake when he thinks no one is watching. As the heat reaches its peak, Kasia prepares the evening meal in Livia's villa, sweat pouring down her face as she stirs a pot of lentils. She glances out the kitchen window, where the household slaves move slowly through the garden, too hot to work quickly. Kasia notices the birds, usually raucous in the fig trees, have gone quiet, their absence unsettling. She mutters another prayer under her breath. Inside the house, Livia inspects the silverware, her mind elsewhere. She thinks of her absent husband, of her friend Antonia's warnings, of the faint taste of ash that sometimes lingers in the air when the wind turns. The memory makes her uneasy. She hears the servants whispering, stories about the last tremor, about cracks in the walls, about dogs refusing to eat, about a goat born with two heads near the city gate. Livia shakes off the stories, but anxiety gnaws at her. The afternoon wanes. In the forum, Merchants pack up their stalls, wary of the lengthening shadows. Children drag their feet home, kicking stones, voices echoing off painted walls. The fountains gurgle in the waning heat. The city breathes in the pause before evening, before lamps are lit, before families gather for supper. It is then, as the city begins to exhale, that the next tremor comes. Stronger than before, it rattles doors and sends clay cups tumbling from shelves. In the bakery, Elia grips the counter as flour jars dance across the surface. Gaius grabs her arm, both of them frozen for a heartbeat as the ground groans beneath their feet. In the villa, Livia's silver crashes to the floor, and the walls creak ominously. Kasia gasps, clutching the edge of the table. "Not again," she whispers. In the streets, people spill from houses, faces pale, voices raised in alarm. "Did you feel that? The gods are angry. Is it the mountain?" Lucius, steady despite the chaos, calms his men, barking orders to clear the gate, to keep the crowd back. He locks eyes with another veteran, both of them remembering worse moments in the past, but never anything like this. For a moment, Pompeii stands still. The marketplace, usually so loud, falls silent except for the cries of frightened children. Even the dogs have stopped barking. Elia, heart pounding, looks to her father, who whispers a prayer he hasn't spoken in years. Marcus, pressed against a stone wall, feels the cold sweat of fear. Livia gathers her servants, voice steady but her hands trembling. "Stay together. Light the lamps. No one leaves the house." The tremor fades, but its effects linger. Cracks snake through painted plaster, dust drifts from the ceilings, and everywhere. The city feels changed, less solid, more fragile. Kasia helps pick up the fallen plates, murmuring to herself about omens. Outside, men and women stand in the street, staring at the mountain's peak, watching for signs. Smoke curls higher now, a thin, dark thread rising into the sky. As the sun lowers, life slowly resumes. Merchants reopen their stalls, hoping for a final sale before dusk. Elia and Gaius sweep the bakery, hands shaking but determined to finish their day. Lucius orders extra patrols at the gates, wary of panic, determined to project calm. Livia hosts a small supper, inviting Antonia and her nephew, but the conversation is strained. Antonia tries to joke about the tremor, but no one laughs. The nephew, a young man with city airs, talks nervously about rumors of disaster in Herculaneum, a neighbor city closer to the mountain. Livia listens, her new charm cool against her skin. In a back alley, Marcus finds a coin on the ground, a sign of luck or of something lost. He pockets it, thinking of Elia, of escape, of a life beyond Pompeii. But the city holds him tight. As darkness gathers, the city's usual bravado returns, but it is hollow. Lamps burn in windows, casting long shadows on the streets. From the forum comes the distant sound of music. Someone tries to chase away fear with song. But beneath the melody, Pompeii waits. The air is restless, the dogs uneasy, and even the wind seems to whisper warnings. The first stars appear. Elia steps outside to cool her face, staring at the mountain. For a moment, it is beautiful, a silhouette against a darkening sky. She wonders what the gods are planning. Marcus, too, finds himself drawn to the view, clutching his lucky coin, heart full of questions he cannot name. Livia kneels at her household altar, asking for protection. Lucius sharpens his sword, watching the city from the gate, alert for any threat. Night falls. The city seems to hold its breath. Tomorrow, everyone thinks, will be better. Tomorrow, the world will right itself. But the mountain looms, silent and patient, and all of Pompeii dreams uneasy dreams. Night in Pompeii falls not gently, but with a nervous hush. Torches flicker along the streets, their flames bending in the breeze that spills down from Vesuvius. The heat of the day still lingers, pressed between the stones, but the air now tastes different, drier, tinged with something metallic, almost bitter. The city tries to find its familiar rhythms. Laughter from a tavern, distant music, the calls of mothers gathering their children. Yet even these sounds feel thinner, brittle, as if the night might snap at any moment. In the bakery, Elia and her father finish sweeping the floor. Gaius's movements are stiff, his silence more pronounced than usual. Elia wants to ask about the tremors, about the strange color of the smoke rising above the mountain, but her father only mutters, "There's always smoke. Don't listen to fools." Yet when he thinks she's not watching, he glances out the window with furrowed brows, eyes tracking the mountain's silhouette. Elia sets aside her fear, trying to remember if she's ever seen her father truly frightened before. Elsewhere, Lucius walks his patrol along the city wall. The streets below are quieter than usual, shadows stretching long and sharp. At each gate, he exchanges words with the night watch. No disturbances, but more people awake than normal. Restless city, one of his men remarks. Like the dogs, they won't sleep tonight. Lucius shrugs, but inside he agrees. The mountain's presence feels heavier now. The sky above it oddly pale even as stars begin to burn through the dusk. Livia's villa glows with lamplight. She presides over a subdued supper. Her son barely touches his food, and Antonia's laughter seems forced. Kasia, her loyal cook, hovers near the door, listening for any tremors or cracks. Livia tries to lighten the mood with talk of tomorrow's plans. A visit to the market, a new shipment of silk from the east. But the words hang weightless in the warm air. I dreamt of fire last night, her son says suddenly. The table goes quiet. Livia forces a smile, but inside her worry coils tighter. As the city settles, Marcus sits atop a low wall near the edge of town, spinning his lucky coin in his fingers. He stares at the stars, so bright, so impossibly far, and tries to imagine a life outside Pompeii's walls. The coin lands heads up. He tucks it away, comforted by the small magic of chance. From his perch, he can see the faint, ruddy glow above Vesuvius, a glow that shouldn't be there. All across Pompeii, families prepare for sleep. Candles are snuffed, prayers whispered. Some pray to Jupiter for protection, others to Venus for peace, a few to the Laras, the household spirits, who are said to watch over each threshold. In the alleys, stray dogs whimper. Birds fidget on their perches. The ground feels tense, as if holding its breath. In the darkest part of the night, the air shifts. A fine, almost invisible dust begins to drift down, at first mistaken for ash from a distant hearth. Kasia, in Livia's kitchen, notices it coating the window ledge, a faint gray film that wasn't there before. She wipes it away with her apron, frowning. Meanwhile, Elia lies awake on her straw mat, heart pounding. She hears her father's breathing slow, heavy, but she knows he's not asleep. Her own thoughts run wild. Will tomorrow bring more tremors? Is Marcus safe? What would it feel like to run, to escape this place if something terrible happens? The questions spin, impossible to answer. Lucius, unable to rest, climbs a stair to the top of the city gate. From this vantage, the city glows softly, a scattered sea of lights. But the mountain's presence dominates, all dark, massive, and now crowned with that unnatural glow. He feels an urge to warn someone, to sound an alarm. But for what? Nothing has truly happened yet. In her villa, Livia stands at the household altar, holding her new crescent charm. She prays in silence, words tumbling out half-formed, desperate. She promises more offerings, more devotion, if only the gods will keep her family safe through the night. Marcus finally leaves his wall and slips through the streets, heading for the bakery. He knocks quietly 3 times, their old signal. Elia lets him in, her face pale in the darkness. For a while, they say nothing, just sit together in the quiet, drawing courage from the warmth of another person. Midnight passes. Across Pompeii, dreams are restless. Fire, falling stones, endless dust. The mountain waits, and so does the city. Tomorrow, everything will change. But for tonight, all anyone can do is hope, pray, and hold each other a little closer. As the first true warning drifts silent through the sleeping streets, it begins, as so many disasters do, not with a scream, but with a deep, inhuman groan that vibrates through the bones of every sleeping citizen. Just before dawn, Pompeii is wrapped in a strange, gray twilight. For a few precious seconds, there is only confusion. The animals, the birds, the people all sense something is wrong, but none can say what. In the bakery, Elia jolts awake as the earth shudders beneath her. The walls creak and a fine rain of flour sifts from the rafters, dusting her face and hair. She scrambles to her feet, heart pounding, and rushes to the doorway. Gaius is already up, standing rigid, his fists clenched at his sides. He stares at the ceiling, as if he could will it to stay whole. The tremor builds, subtle at first, then stronger, until pots clatter to the ground and the oven's bricks begin to rattle in their mortar. In the street, doors bang open. Voices rise in confusion and fear. Elsewhere, Lucius is on the city wall, eyes heavy from lack of sleep, when he feels the stones beneath him vibrate. He grabs the parapet, steadying himself, as a low thunder rumbles from Vesuvius. He looks north. A column of black, boiling smoke is rising rapidly, thicker and darker than any fire he's seen. The mountain's summit is vanishing into a growing cloud. In the faint dawn light, ash begins to drift, at first like snow, then in heavier flakes. Lucius swears, racing down the steps to alert the other guards. Across town, Livia is already awake, pacing her villa. She had not slept. Dreams of fire and falling stones kept her restless all night. The first tremor sends her stumbling. A lamp crashes to the floor, shattering oil and flame across the tiles. Kasia, her cook, rushes in, hair wild, clutching a statue of Venus. It's the gods, Domina. The gods are angry. Livia bites back her own fear and shouts for the slaves to gather the family and bring them into the garden. Anything to get away from crumbling walls. In every alley and every square, chaos erupts. Children cry as parents drag them into the street. Dogs bolt and chickens scatter. People shout for loved ones, for the gods, for anyone who might have answers. Marcus, who has barely slept, is caught outside, pressed against a wall as tiles tumble from rooftops. He tries to make his way to Elia, but the streets are choked with people. Someone shoves him, he nearly falls. An old woman clutches at his arm, her eyes wide with terror. "Is it the end?" she whimpers. Marcus shakes his head, he doesn't know what to say. All he knows is that the mountain has never looked like this. Above all, the sound, the impossible roar that seems to shake the very sky. It drowns out the shouts, the sobs, even the crash of falling timber. Ash is now falling thickly, coating everything in ghostly gray. Inside the bakery, Gaius shouts at Elia, "Water! Bring water!" as he checks for cracks in the walls. Through the doorway, they see people fleeing, faces smeared with ash. Gaius hesitates, torn between the safety of the bakery and the terror outside. He grabs Elia by the arm. "We go to the forum. There will be others, maybe shelter." They push out into the chaos, joining a river of panicked citizens. Every face is streaked with confusion and terror. At the forum, hundreds gather, clutching bundles of clothes, loaves of bread, whatever treasures they could snatch. The city's magistrates try to shout orders, but their words are lost in the tumult. On the edge of the crowd, Lucius appears, his armor dusted gray. He calls out, "Everyone to the south gate, away from the mountain." But many refuse to move, paralyzed by fear or disbelief. Others clutch amulets and pray aloud. At her villa, Livia tries to maintain calm. She gathers her son and daughter, the servants and Kasia, into the central courtyard. The ash falls thicker now, turning the fountain's water black. Livia orders wet cloths for everyone to cover their mouths and noses. She tries to comfort her son, whose tears streak clean lines down his sooty cheeks. "We'll be safe," she lies, her voice trembling. "The gods will protect us." Suddenly, a second, deeper roar splits the air. The ground shakes violently. Roofs begin to collapse, sending up plumes of dust. All across Pompeii, people run, stumble, fall. Some pray, some curse, some simply stare in horror as the sky grows darker. Marcus, separated from Elia, is swept toward the amphitheater by a rushing crowd. He sees a man knocked down and nearly trampled. Marcus drags him to his feet. Ash stings his eyes and throat. He pulls his tunic over his face, trying to breathe. Elia and Gaius, clinging to each other, press forward through the forum. The statues of the gods loom out of the gloom, their features blurred by falling ash. "Keep moving!" Gaius shouts, but people are everywhere. Crying, shouting, dragging carts and livestock, desperate for direction. In the villa, Livia makes a decision. "We go to the river," she orders. "Away from the mountain, away from the city." Kasia nods, gathering supplies, while Livia's son clings to her dress. The family and their servants move through the garden, slipping out a side gate as stones begin to fall from the sky, pumice, sharp and deadly. At the city's edge, Lucius organizes a group of guards and citizens, leading them toward the southern road. The ash now falls so heavily it's like twilight at midday. People stumble, choke, eyes red and streaming. The wind carries the mountain's wrath, hot, suffocating, relentless. For many, panic becomes a tide that cannot be resisted. Some try to flee in wagons, overloaded and slow. Others attempt to take shelter in cellars, hoping stone will protect them. But already, the roofs groan under the weight of ash and stone. Amid the chaos, the voices of Pompeii echo. Prayers to every god, desperate bargains, children calling for mothers, lovers searching for each other in the gloom. Marcus, fighting his way through the press, finally spots Ilia and Gaius near the edge of the forum. He calls their names, waving his arms. Ilia sees him, relief washing over her face. For a moment, amid the nightmare, hope flickers. But hope is fleeting. The ash falls thicker, now mixed with small stones that sting the skin. Thunder growls overhead, and the air is filled with the sharp scent of sulfur. Dogs howl, horses rear and break their tethers. Gaius pulls Ilia and Marcus together. "We go south," he says. "Now, quickly." They join Lucius's group, merging into the flow of fleeing citizens. Livia, too, is on the move, her household huddled together as they slip through narrow lanes, dodging falling tiles and debris. In her arms, her son clings tightly, face buried in her shoulder. The river seems impossibly far. By the time the sun should have risen, Pompeii is shrouded in darkness. The city is unrecognizable. Roofs caved in, streets clogged with ash and frightened people. Above it all, Vesuvius looms, a living nightmare, its fire hidden but its power impossible to escape. In the gathering gloom, the people of Pompeii run for their lives, chased by the mountain's fury and the terrible knowledge that nothing will ever be the same again. The darkness over Pompeii is now nearly absolute, the sun blotted out by the mountain's ash. It's not yet midday, but it might as well be midnight. Every breath burns. The air is choked with dust, and the city's broad streets have become rivers of gray mud. The once familiar mosaic tiles are buried, the grand statues and columns half swallowed by swirling ash. Only the shrieks of the desperate, the crash of falling roofs, and the constant, thundering roar from Vesuvius fill the void. Ilia, Gaius, and Marcus cling together in the chaos, following the battered line of guards led by Lucius. He shouts commands, voice hoarse, face streaked with sweat and soot. "Stay together. Cover your mouths. Keep moving." The group pushes south, dodging shattered wagons and stumbling over bodies. Some wounded, some already still. Parents carry children. Lovers hold hands. Slaves and masters run side by side, all equal now beneath the shadow of the volcano. From the Forum to the South Gate, the journey is a nightmare. The ash underfoot is ankle-deep and growing. Sometimes it feels as if the earth itself is dragging at their legs, intent on swallowing them. At every crossing, there are choices. Alleys choked with debris, side streets blocked by the rubble of collapsed houses. Gaius coughs and wipes his eyes with a filthy sleeve. Marcus tries to help an old man who's fallen, but the man shakes his head, refusing to rise. "Go!" he croaks, pushing Marcus away. "Go! Save yourself." Marcus hesitates, then stumbles on, guilt heavy on his shoulders. Behind them, in the heart of the city, Livia's family and their servants hurry through narrow lanes. The air is hot and thick, and every breath is a struggle. Kasia carries a bundle of bread and a flask of water, clutched to her chest as if it were treasure. Livia leads the way, her hair caked with ash, her hands shaking. Her children cling to her, eyes wide and terrified. Around them, other families move in frightened packs. One by one, neighbors join, seeking safety in numbers. Suddenly, a great, shuddering crash splits the air. A roof gives way, sending a storm of tiles and beams into the street behind them. Screams erupt. For a moment, the group is scattered, fleeing blindly. Livia pulls her children to a wall, shielding them with her own body as stones rain down. Kasia's voice rises over the chaos. "Here, this way." She waves her arms, gathering the group. They sprint for a side alley, dodging debris. At the alley's mouth, Livia counts heads. Everyone is here, for now. The air grows thicker. The ash falls faster. Breathing becomes agony. Many in the fleeing crowds tie cloths over their faces, but it does little. Children cry and beg to be carried. Some simply collapse. Strong hands lift them, passing the smallest forward through the crowd. The city's southern gate, their only hope, looms through the haze. Lucius, battered and grim, organizes his group at the gate. His training holds. He refuses to panic, barking orders with the certainty of a man who's faced death before. "No pushing. Move in pairs. If you fall, we pick you up. Some people are so blinded by ash they cannot see. Others have blood running from their noses. The panic of the crowd threatens to become a deadly stampede. Outside the walls, the roads are little better. The land is blanketed in falling stones. Pumice, some pieces as big as fists. The air is filled with a sulfurous fog, choking and hot. People stumble, wade through drifts of ash, help each other over the remains of toppled carts and dead animals. Some fall and are lost, disappearing beneath the gray tide. Others drop their belongings, realizing that only speed matters now. In the chaos, Gaius leads Elia and Marcus off the main road, ducking into an orchard on the outskirts. The trees here offer little shelter. Branches sag and break under the weight of falling stones. Gaius coughs violently, then collapses to his knees, gasping. Elia kneels beside him, pressing a damp cloth to his lips. "Drink," she whispers, handing him water. Marcus scans the field for others. He sees scattered groups, shadows moving between the trees, many heading toward the river and the coast. A sudden scream pierces the air. A woman, separated from her family, calls out for her child. Marcus, heart pounding, dashes into the gray, finds a sobbing girl clutching a doll. He scoops her up, shielding her face with his cloak, and returns her to her mother. For a moment, gratitude flickers. Then the next wave of stones falls, driving everyone onward. Back in the city, Livia's group reaches the southern gate. The guards are gone, fled or dead. The passage is choked with people, everyone desperate to get out. In the crush, Kasia drops her bread. A man behind her grabs it, disappearing into the crowd. Livia doesn't care. Her focus is on her children, who cough and cling to her hands. Outside, the sky is an unnatural, angry red, streaked with lightning that crackles within the ash cloud. The mountain's roar is unceasing, and the earth trembles with each new explosion. Livia's youngest, terrified, sobs that she cannot walk. Kasia hoists the child onto her back, gritting her teeth against the pain. In the orchard, Gaius forces himself to his feet, eyes wild. "We have to keep moving," he rasps. "The river. If we reach the water, maybe the boats." But even as he speaks, the river itself is a ribbon of black, choked with debris and bodies. Some try to swim. Others are swept away by the current, lost forever. Marcus, Elia, and Gaius cling to each other, pushing through the orchard and across muddy fields. Ash drifts in every hollow, the world reduced to a palette of gray and red. Above them, the sky is so heavy with falling stones it seems the world itself might collapse. Behind, the city groans, a sound like a dying giant, as roofs fall and towers crumble. On the road to the sea, Livia's group moves in fits and starts, sometimes crawling on hands and knees to avoid the worst of the falling stones. She prays quiet, desperate prayers to every god she knows. Her children's faces are streaked with tears and ash. Kasia's voice is a steady anchor. "One more step, little one, just one more." Others join them, strangers, neighbors, slaves freed by disaster. A man with a broken leg is carried by his wife and brother. An old woman mutters curses, dragging a battered statue of Mercury by its foot. All along the road, the living and the dead lie side by side, impossible to count. In the growing horror, choices must be made. Some head for the countryside, hoping the ash will thin. Others try to shelter in villas and temples, seeking safety in thick walls and the favor of the gods. But the stones fall everywhere, indiscriminate, relentless. Near the riverbank, Lucius gathers survivors, anyone who will listen. He leads them down to the muddy shore, scanning for boats. Most are gone, stolen by those who fled early. A handful remain, crowded with desperate people, rocking dangerously as new arrivals try to board. Lucius draws his sword, bellowing, "One at a time, children first." It is chaos. Some men push forward, fists flying. Others, in their desperation, wade into the river, hoping to swim to safety. Gaius, seeing no room in the boats, looks at Elia and Marcus. "We'll run along the shore," he says. "Keep together. Stay away from the water if you can't swim." The trio join a stream of refugees trudging south, away from the mountain, away from the dying city. The ash is so thick now that it muffles all sound except the thunder from Vesuvius. The sky is lit by lightning, the earth shaking underfoot. In places, the ground opens, swallowing whole trees and small buildings. Some cry out to the gods. Others simply run, driven by terror and instinct. In the last light of the day, a day that should have been bright but is as dark as night, Elia looks back. Through the ash, she can just make out the city's walls, now little more than broken silhouettes. She sees fire glowing through the smoke, the outlines of collapsing temples, the final, desperate flight of her neighbors. Ahead, the fields are covered in fleeing shapes, all running from the same doom. In the crowd, Livia clasps her children close. Lucius, sword in hand, leads another group away from the river, urging them on. Gaius, Elia, and Marcus move together, each step heavier, each breath a struggle. Behind them, Pompeii dies. But as long as they move, there is hope. Hope for dawn, hope for survival, hope for a life beyond the ash. They do not know if they will reach it. They only know they must keep moving, into the darkness, into the unknown, away from the fury of the mountain. And so they run, and the story of Pompeii continues. One heartbeat, one breath, one desperate step at a time. The night has fallen upon Pompeii, but no stars pierce the sky. The world is wrapped in a darkness thicker than pitch, a darkness that presses against the eyes and makes every step a leap of faith. The only light is the eerie, reddish glow that pulses above the mountain. Flashes of lightning inside the boiling cloud, strange, silent bursts of fire that make the ash dance in the air like ghosts. Elia, Gaius, and Marcus have made it beyond the orchards, their bodies caked in ash, every breath a struggle. They cling to each other, following a line of figures barely visible ahead, stumbling over the unseen ground. Their lungs burn, their mouths taste of grit and copper. Around them, others cough, weep, pray, or simply move in silence, all hope burned out. Behind them, the city of Pompeii is being consumed. From the slopes of Vesuvius, a new terror descends. The mountain bellows, a sound like 100 thunderclaps, and the ground trembles beneath their feet. The sky cracks open with a torrent of pumice and fire. Rocks fall like rain, some large enough to crush a man. The fleeing crowd breaks and scatters, people diving for what little cover the open fields offer. Marcus throws himself atop Elia, shielding her as a stone thuds into the ground beside them. Gaius yells in pain as a sharp fragment slices his arm. Farther back, in the choking chaos near the river, Lucius still leads a band of survivors. His own guards, a handful of townsfolk, slaves and citizens now indistinguishable. He shouts orders, but his words are lost in the roar. A few manage to board the overloaded boats, pushing off into the darkness, while others fight for space and are thrown into the water. Some never resurface. Lucius, seeing the hopeless press of bodies, finally shouts, "Abandon the boats! Follow me along the bank." He leads his group south, battered by ash and stone, their only goal to keep moving. In the city itself, Livia's family and a scattering of neighbors have taken shelter in the basement of a grand villa, huddled with torches and what little food they managed to save. The children cry for their father, for home, for the world they remember, but the world has changed. Kasia tries to calm them, telling stories in a trembling voice, but outside, the crash of falling stones drowns her words. The villa shakes with each new blast from the mountain. Dust sifts from the ceiling. A section of wall collapses, sending screams echoing in the darkness. Livia hugs her children to her chest, whispering prayers she learned as a child. A neighbor tries to dig through the rubble, but gives up, coughing blood. "We are buried alive," he moans. "Mercury, help us. We are dead already." No one answers him. Outside, the temperature drops suddenly. In the midst of fire and ash, a wind rises, cold, fierce, laden with poisonous gases. The darkness deepens as the ash cloud thickens, blotting out even the faint red glow from Vesuvius. People stumble, blinded and lost. Some collapse, suffocating where they fall. Others freeze in place, overcome by exhaustion or fear. Elia's group, battered and half-blind, moves on instinct now. The world has shrunk to a few yards of gray air. The only guidance the sounds of shuffling feet, the desperate voices of those who have not yet given up. Gaius's wound bleeds, sticky and hot against the cold of the night. Marcus urges him on, voice hoarse. "Almost there. Keep going." They do not know where there is. Only that to stop is to die. Suddenly, a new horror arrives. A rushing wall of heat, silent, unstoppable, blasts down from the mountain. It is the pyroclastic surge, a river of death hotter than any forge, moving faster than a horse can gallop. Those in its path have no time to scream. The breath is stolen from their lungs. The flesh burns in an instant. Pompeii is caught and erased in moments. Ilia, Gaius, and Marcus are at the very edge. They feel the heat, see the ground around them blacken. Gaius shouts, "Down! Down!" They throw themselves flat in a shallow ditch, covering their heads with their arms, praying that the earth itself will shield them. The world explodes in brightness, then in utter dark. For a time, there is no sound but the settling of ash, the soft, deadly fall of the mountain's last gift. When Ilia opens her eyes, she cannot see more than a few inches ahead. The silence is absolute, broken only by the distant, fading sobs of the dying. Within the city, the villa's basement is a tomb. The last torch gutters and dies, plunging Livia's family into blackness. The children cry once more, then fall silent. Cassia's hand finds Livia's in the dark. There are no more prayers left. The mountain continues to rage, but its fury is spent. The city is still. No voices, no bells, no footsteps on stone. The river runs black with mud and debris. On the road to the sea, the refugees have scattered. Some reach the shore, dazed and silent, staring at the place where Pompeii once stood. Others lie still where they fell, their stories ended in the ash. Dawn creeps over the horizon, a sickly light struggling through the ash cloud. The landscape is changed forever. A gray desert where once there were gardens, houses, and laughter. The trees are charred skeletons, the fields a wasteland. The only movement comes from the crows and the first curious dogs, sniffing through the silent streets. Ilia sits up slowly, her hair and clothes coated in ash. Beside her, Gaius and Marcus do not move. She shakes them. Gaius groans, alive but weak. Marcus does not respond. For a moment, Ilia cannot breathe, thinking she is alone in this dead world. Then Gaius opens his eyes, coughs, and sits up beside her. Together, they look back toward the city. There is nothing left, no temple, no market, no home. The mountain stands above it all, calm now, its rage spent. In the silence, the truth is inescapable. Pompeii is gone, and only the living, if any remain, can tell its story. Ilia takes Gaius's hand. They rise unsteadily, helping each other to their feet. The air is still thick with dust, but they walk on, away from the ruins, toward the uncertain hope of another village, another life. Behind them, the city sleeps beneath its shroud of ash. Every story, every voice, every dream sealed in darkness. The world will not remember every name, nor every sorrow, nor every last act of courage. But as long as someone survives, as long as a single heart still beats, Pompeii endures. Not as stone, not as wealth, but as memory. And so, in silence, the survivors walk onward, carrying the last light of a vanished world into the new day. Night falls, but the world refuses to rest. After the roaring collapse of roofs, the endless hail of ash, and the frantic flight, the surviving citizens of Pompeii and their neighbors wander the roads in shock, unsure whether what they have seen is real or nightmare. For some, the journey south toward Stabii is nothing more than a blur. Ashen faces drifting through darkness, shoulders hunched against a sky that spits hot dust and thunder. For others, it is the beginning of a torment that will haunt them for years. Ilia walks in silence, clutching the hand of Gaius, whose eyes are fixed on the distant glow where their city once stood. The crowd around them is a tide of suffering. Children weeping for lost parents, old men muttering prayers, mothers staggering with infants pressed to their chests, all moving as if in a trance. Ash falls on them still, thin but relentless, coating clothes and hair, filling mouths and lungs with its taste of oblivion. The road is slow. More than once, they pass bodies half buried in gray. A dog, silent and still, lies beside its master. A cart has broken its wheel, its load of furniture and hopes abandoned. Somewhere ahead, a woman screams. Someone has collapsed from exhaustion or grief. There is little anyone can do. Everyone is broken, and each step away from Pompeii feels like a betrayal and a mercy at once. Gaius tries to lift spirits. He tells Ilia, in a voice dry with dust, "We'll rebuild. Romans always do. I'll open a new bakery, somewhere safer. You'll see." But even as he speaks, his voice falters. The old world is gone. Only the ache of hunger and loss remains. They reach the edge of Stabii at dawn. The village is swollen with refugees. Every house and shed packed with the living, the dying, and those who cannot be consoled. On the hills above, patricians and their slaves crowd into gardens and courtyards, peering north with haunted eyes. Rumors spread like wildfire. The sea boiled. Herculaneum has vanished. Naples is next. Panic flickers in every voice. At a makeshift camp, Ilia and Gaius collapse, grateful only for a strip of cloth and a jug of bitter water. The relief is short-lived. People stagger in, coughing violently, faces black with soot. A merchant shouts that the mountain still glows red at night, that the gods are angry, that the emperor must send help. Some demand prayers. Others demand wine or news or someone to blame. In a corner, a handful of city leaders attempt to organize a census, searching for survivors, piecing together which families are missing. Names are shouted, answered, and sometimes greeted with silence. Felix, the old baker, is nowhere to be found. The child Lucia, the centurion's niece, is missing. For every reunion, there are 3 heartbreaks. The Matrona Julia, once regal and untouchable, sobs in public for the first time in her life, clutching the dress her daughter wore that morning. Night again. The air is cold and sharp, the sky purple with ash and the flickering red of unseen fires. Some attempt to sleep. Others pace restlessly, unable to close their eyes. Ilia dreams of the bakery, of kneading bread beside her father. When she wakes, she can still smell the yeast and would smoke, but it's only memory. Gaius, feverish, talks in his sleep, begging for water, whispering his mother's name. Every sound in the camp is too loud. A cough, a baby's wail, a man shouting in anger. Suddenly, shouts ripple through the night. People rush toward the road. A handful of young men have returned from the outskirts of Pompeii, their faces black with soot, eyes wild. The city is buried, one yells. Nothing is left. The roofs are crushed, the temple's gone. The gods have punished us. This news spreads first as shock, then as anger. Some refuse to believe it, vowing to return at dawn and search for lost relatives, for buried treasures, for any sign of hope. Others fall silent, retreating into themselves. Ilia gathers with Gaius and a few other survivors. Marcus the centurion, his cloak ruined and face cut, and Marcellus the teacher, who carries a single burned scroll tied with a string. They share bread and bitter wine in silence, staring into the campfire. Each wonders what comes next. Is there a life beyond this night? Will the emperor send aid, or has Rome already forgotten them? The ground is still, yet every now and then, a distant tremor shakes the earth, sending new terror through the camp. No one speaks of returning home, not yet. Too many questions are unanswered, too many loved ones lost. As dawn approaches, the group resolves to survive another day, nothing more. They vow not to forget the faces of the missing, nor the lives stolen by the mountain. The future is a blank page, smeared with ash and shadow. In the distance, Vesuvius still grumbles, and the night is not yet done. The story of Pompeii is far from over. Daylight over Stabi arrives ghostly, filtered through a sky still thick with drifting ash. The entire town feels like a place suspended between worlds. Not yet entirely destroyed, not yet entirely alive. Overnight, thousands have swollen its streets, fugitives from Pompeii and other villages, carrying whatever they could snatch in their flight. Some drag carts, others bundles wrapped in wet cloth, a few nothing but the ragged clothes on their backs and haunted eyes. Every open space has become a camp, every stoop a bed, every barrel or well a battleground for water. Ilia wakes to the smell of smoke, mixed with sweat and the sour tang of too many people crammed together in fear. Her first thought is for her father, Gaius. She finds him huddled with others around a makeshift fire, his bread baker's hands shaking, his face streaked black and gray. He stares at the mountain, Vesuvius, still looming on the horizon, crowned now by a column of smoke that twists higher and darker than before. Rumors race through the crowd. The eruption is not over. The earth might split again. The sea may boil. Each story is wilder, more desperate. Gaius pulls Ilia close, his voice rough. If the wind turns, the ash will come for us again. We may have to run further still. Ilia nods, trying to be brave. Around them, people whisper about Naples, whether to risk the road or wait for word from Rome. Some talk of heading inland, toward the hills, away from the poisoned sky. Meanwhile, in a crowded corner of the forum, Marcus the centurion limps among the survivors, searching for any sign of his family. His armor is battered, his face lined with exhaustion. Every few minutes he stops to cough, a harsh, tearing sound. He speaks with other soldiers, all dazed, all stripped of rank and certainty. The Roman order has shattered. For now, only survival matters. They compare rumors. The navy is sending ships. The emperor himself has heard of the disaster. Or perhaps the gods have abandoned them for good. Marcus listens, but his thoughts are always on his wife and niece. He has not found them. Elsewhere, Marcellus the teacher clings to his single rescued scroll, a treatise on Virgil, now scorched at the edges. He tries to comfort children in the camp, gathering a small crowd as he tells stories of Troy and of Rome's ancient heroes. His voice is thin, his audience restless, but for a moment, a kind of calm settles over them. Once, he says, there was a city even greater than Rome, and it too fell in fire and ash. Yet its memory lives on. You must hold tight to your memories. They are the only thing the mountain cannot steal. As the day stretches on, the heat rises. Ash swirls in every breeze. Water grows scarce, tempers flare, and the sound of wailing mixes with prayers in every language. Elia helps fetch water from a well, only to find it muddy, tainted. Gaius trades a silver ring, the last piece of his family's fortune, for a handful of dried figs and a strip of salt pork. The food tastes of tears, but it is all they have. A group of city officials, desperate to restore some sense of order, tries to organize the crowds. Lists are made of the missing, the wounded, the dead. Names are shouted, answered, repeated in vain. Elias, the baker's rival, stumbles in from the road, bloodied and dazed. His wife is lost, his home gone. They embrace, not as rivals but as brothers in suffering. All boundaries have dissolved in the ash. As evening falls, the mood in Stabi shifts. Word comes that more refugees are arriving. Some from Herculaneum, their stories even grimmer. They speak of a wall of fire, of the sea turning to steam, of entire streets buried in boiling mud. The camp grows restless. Some demand the magistrates send for help. Others say it is useless, that all hope is lost. A small group of men, desperate and hungry, tries to break into a storehouse, and a brawl erupts. Shouting, fists, a thrown stone. The soldiers struggle to keep peace, but order is breaking under the weight of misery. Elia, exhausted, sits with her father beside the fire. She listens as Gaius recounts stories of better days. How he once dreamed of opening a bakery in Rome. How her mother loved the sound of the rain on their old roof. "We are alive," he whispers, squeezing her hand. "That is enough for now." She nods, but her eyes are fixed on the horizon, where Vesuvius still glows, a wound in the sky. That night, the air grows colder, and the refugees huddle closer together. Some pray, some weep, some stare in silence. The mountain's rumbling has faded, but its shadow lingers over every heart. Dreams are filled with ash and fire, with the faces of the missing. Every breath tastes of dust, and every hope is fragile. In the final hours before dawn, Elias slips away from the camp, wandering the edge of town, searching for signs of the old world. A laurel tree, a piece of mosaic, anything familiar. She finds nothing but silence and darkness. Yet as she stands beneath the alien sky, she promises herself that she will not let Pompeii be forgotten. No matter what comes next, she will remember. She will survive. Far off, a faint tremor shakes the earth, and in the distance, the mountain's glow pulses, a reminder that the story of Pompeii and its people is far from over. Night descends on Stabii with a heaviness that feels almost physical. Torches flicker in every street, casting unsteady shadows on walls crowded with refugees. The population has doubled, then tripled in just a day, and the old order of the town has collapsed under the weight of need and panic. The air is full of smoke, ash, and the low hum of whispered fears. Dogs bark, children cry, and everywhere, people search for missing faces in the throng. Parents for children, lovers for each other, friends for friends. The little safety Stabii offers is as thin as the blanket Elia shares with her father in their corner of the forum, surrounded by strangers and hope. At the edge of the plaza, a small group gathers around an old man. He is telling fortunes by lamplight, peering into the ashes for signs. "The gods have sent this punishment for our pride," he declares. "But not all will be lost." Some listen, seeking comfort or a sense of order in his words. Others scoff, refusing to let fate dictate their future. Still, the ancient rituals bring a strange sense of unity, if only because everyone here is equally at the mercy of gods and the mountain. Elia, restless despite her exhaustion, rises and walks among the tents and makeshift shelters. Everywhere she goes, she hears stories of miraculous escapes, of heartbreak and terror. A mother who carried her infant for miles through clouds of ash. A merchant who shielded his blind wife from falling debris, guiding her with a rope. A young boy who returned to Pompeii after the first eruption, searching for his lost dog, and never came back. The stories blend together, creating a patchwork of grief and survival, weaving a fragile sense of community from shared pain. She meets Flavia, a matron from Pompeii, who sits with her daughters near a dwindling fire. Flavia's hands shake as she braids her youngest girl's hair, but her voice is steady. "I have seen war, famine, even plague," she says, "but never this. The gods are angry, and yet we are alive. That must mean something." She offers Ilia a place by their fire, and the two families share what little food they have: a crust of bread, a sliver of dried meat, a fig saved for better days. They eat in silence, broken only by the soft murmurs of children. Elsewhere, Marcus the centurion finally finds word of his niece. He learns that she and her mother were seen boarding a boat at the Stabi docks, headed for Sorrento or perhaps Naples. Relief and guilt war within him. He is grateful they may have survived, yet he stayed behind, bound by duty and the weight of Rome's crumbling authority. Marcus joins a patrol of exhausted soldiers, working to keep order in the town. Fights break out over water, over space, over rumors that another wave of refugees is coming from the north. The soldiers try to mediate, but discipline has faded. Now, brute strength is all that matters. Marcellus the teacher walks among the children, his rescued scroll tucked in his belt, gathering them for another story. He tells them of Odysseus, lost and wandering, and the children listen with wide eyes. For a moment, they are transported away from the ash and chaos. Marcellus's own heart aches for his students back in Pompeii, the ones he may never see again. He promises himself that, if he survives, he will remember every name, every face. In a quieter alley, Gaius the baker tends to his injured hand, wrapping it with a strip of linen offered by a kind stranger. He watches Ilia from afar, pride and sorrow mingling in his chest. She has grown so much in these few terrible days. Braver, wiser, more determined than he ever expected. He thinks of his wife, lost so long ago, and whispers a prayer that their daughter will live to see another sunrise. As midnight approaches, the town grows quieter. People settle in wherever they can, under carts, beneath awnings, pressed against walls for warmth. Some pray, some sing old songs, some weep into the night. Overhead, the sky glows a faint, unnatural red, the mountain's fury never entirely fading. Ilia cannot sleep. She walks the edge of the camp, listening to the distant rumble of Vesuvius and watching for any sign that the wind will shift. She wonders how many are left behind in Pompeii, how many trapped, how many lost beneath the ash. Suddenly, there is a commotion at the edge of town. A boat has arrived at the docks, battered and overloaded with survivors from Herculaneum. Their faces are hollow, their clothes soaked with seawater and ash. Among them is a little girl, silent and trembling, clutching a wooden doll. The townspeople crowd around, offering blankets, water, whatever comfort they can spare. The girl speaks only once, her voice no louder than a whisper. "The fire chased us all the way to the sea." Word spreads quickly. Herculaneum is gone, the sea boiled, the sky rained stones. Many in Stabi begin to despair. If the mountain has destroyed two cities, what hope is there for them? Yet in the darkness, a strange determination grows. "We survived," says Flavia, her voice fierce. "We will survive again." She gathers the children, urging them to sleep, promising that tomorrow will be better. Ilia returns to her father's side, curling against him beneath their thin blanket. She clings to the hope that the worst is over, though the mountain's distant thunder tells her otherwise. She remembers the stories Marcellus told. The hero lost at sea, the city burned but not forgotten. In the deepest part of the night, she promises herself that she too will remember. No matter how far she travels from this place, she will never let Pompeii and its people slip away. As dawn begins to break, the town stirs. The ash has settled a little, the air tastes cleaner. People rise stiffly, stretch aching limbs, and begin the day's work anew. Stabi is battered, but not beaten. Children chase each other in the empty streets. Vendors open their shutters, offering what little food remains. Life, fragile and uncertain, persists. Ilia stands at the edge of the forum, watching the first rays of sun turn the sky gold above the haunted mountain. For a moment, she allows herself to hope. They have survived the worst night of their lives. Ahead lies uncertainty, but also the chance for new beginnings. And behind them, Pompeii smolders in silence. A city of ghosts, but also of memories, carried in the hearts of the living. The morning after the refugees' arrival, Pompeii is transformed. The quiet seaside town has become a city of strangers, of shattered routines and new beginnings forced by the mountain's wrath. The sky, though clearer than the day before, is streaked with bands of gray and orange, and a thin dusting of ash covers every surface. Rooftops, carts, the broad leaves of the sycamores lining the forum. Shopkeepers sweep their thresholds, their gestures slow and defeated. The smell of the sea mingles with the ever-present tang of volcanic ash. Elia rises before her father, slipping from beneath their blanket and making her way through the crowded square. In the dim light, she hears the murmurs of children already awake, giggling as they play with pebbles in the dust, while older men sit in knots, debating the future in low voices. Some want to move on, find family further inland. Others argue that Pompeii is now the safest place on Earth. Lightning never strikes twice, they claim, and the gods surely wouldn't let the mountain burn 3 cities in 1 week. Still, anxiety gnaws at everyone, and glances to the north betray a nervous fear that Vesuvius may not be finished. Elia's first stop is the makeshift kitchens. Rows of tables, cauldrons bubbling, women handing out bread, thin porridge and weak wine. She helps for a while, carrying water and cleaning bowls. There she meets Sabina, a baker's wife from Pompeii, who has lost both her husband and her home. Sabina's face is hollow with grief, but her hands work quickly and she offers a smile to every child. "We must feed each other now," she tells Elia, "and keep our hearts whole. One day, we'll tell our children of this, and they'll say we were the bravest women in the world." Meanwhile, Gaius walks the perimeter of the forum, checking for friends and news. He finds Marcus, the centurion, among a small group of soldiers organizing patrols and supplies. Marcus's eyes are red, but his posture is rigid as ever. "Order must be kept," he mutters. "There are thieves among us. Already I've heard of a wagon of food disappearing in the night. Some men will use any excuse for cruelty." Gaius nods, understanding. Hunger and fear turn good men desperate. Elsewhere, Marcellus the teacher has gathered a cluster of children in a shaded portico. His rescued scrolls are stacked beside him, and he tries to teach as if nothing has changed, reciting lines of Virgil, telling stories of Aeneas and his journey from burning Troy. The children listen, at first just to escape their parents' grief, but slowly, the words take hold. A small girl asks, "Did Aeneas ever go home again?" Marcellus pauses, then shakes his head. "He found a new home, and made it sacred by remembering the old. It is the closest he dares come to hope." As the morning wears on, the forum buzzes with talk of rescue and rebuilding. Some men make lists of survivors, of missing relatives, of things lost forever beneath the ash. Messengers arrive from Sorrento and Naples, bringing news that the wind has turned, that the ashfall may lessen, that relief is coming. Others bring darker tidings. Herculaneum is gone, the countryside is choked with refugees, and the emperor himself has ordered supplies to be sent south. In the harbor, ships ride at anchor, their decks crowded with men and women hoping for passage further along the coast. Prices soar. A place on a boat now costs more than many will ever earn. Some weep at the water's edge, watching the last ships depart, knowing they are stranded for now. But others see opportunity. A fisherman from Pompeii offers to ferry children to Sorrento for a fee, and a merchant opens his warehouse to the homeless, earning praise and gratitude from many. Midday brings a new anxiety. A tremor, gentle but unmistakable, ripples through the earth. Birds startle from the trees, and a hush falls over the forum. People freeze, waiting for the mountain's roar. But after a moment, the shaking passes, and the city breathes again. Elia finds her father, who hugs her tightly. "We have survived this long," he says, "and we will survive whatever comes." That afternoon, Elia volunteers to help at the makeshift infirmary, a colonnade crowded with the wounded and sick. There, she meets a doctor from Naples, a stern woman named Lucia who works tirelessly, setting broken bones, cleaning burns, comforting the dying. Elia helps as best she can, fetching water and bandages, holding hands and listening to the feverish mutterings of those trapped in memory. Some cry out for mothers lost, others for homes buried. A few simply beg for the pain to stop. Lucia gives Elia a lesson in gratitude. When you go home tonight, she says, thank the gods you can stand and breathe and eat. These are the only miracles we can trust. Evening falls slowly over Staby, painting the sea and the sky in colors that seem too beautiful for such a broken world. Fires are lit along the shore. Women sing soft lullabies to their children. Men tell stories of old victories, old loves, old feasts. Some of the youngest, too frightened to sleep, cluster around Marcellus, who spins another tale, this time of a city beneath the waves, where lost souls become dolphins and swim forever in peace. As darkness gathers, the first stars appear, faint, blurred through the haze of ash still drifting on the wind. Elia lies beside her father, thinking of Pompeii and the life they left behind. She remembers the bakery, the warmth of the ovens, her mother's laughter echoing down narrow streets. She wonders what will become of them all. The rich who have lost their houses, the poor who have nothing left to lose, the children whose only inheritance is survival. But above all, she holds to Lucia's lesson, gratitude. They are alive together beneath the same sky. She listens to the slow, deep breathing of her father and finds comfort in the rhythm. Somewhere in the night, the mountain rumbles again, a distant, ominous reminder. But in Staby, life goes on, fragile and beautiful, even as ash drifts down like a silent memory of all that has been lost. Night in Staby, once a time for quiet strolls by the harbor or whispered songs on cool terraces, is now a tapestry of uneasy sleep and nervous hope. Refugees crowd every available space. In storerooms, under porticos, even in the courtyards of temples whose gods must now bear witness to too much suffering. The air is heavy with dust and the lingering scent of fear, but also with the faint aroma of soup bubbling in communal pots, and the rough music of humanity pressing forward despite disaster. Elia finds herself lying between her father and a family from Herculaneum, their two boys whispering about the eruption, replaying the day's terrors as if to drain them of power. Across the square, old men gamble with whatever coins or tokens they still possess, while children chase shadows in the torchlight. Dogs roam in nervous packs, wary of strangers and sudden movements. The whole city feels poised between exhaustion and eruption, caught in a pause before the world resumes its relentless march. At the edge of the square, Gaius stands watch. His body aches with fatigue, but he cannot rest. Instead, he surveys the crowd, alert for signs of trouble. He catches sight of Marcus, the centurion, patrolling with a handful of Stabian militia. Marcus's armor glints, his presence reassuring to some, menacing to others. A group of local merchants mutter that Rome has brought trouble, blaming the newcomers for the scarcity of bread and the spike in prices. Yet, as Gaius watches, he also sees acts of quiet generosity. A woman sharing her last figs with a neighbor, an old priest offering water to children whose parents have not yet returned from the docks. Inside the makeshift infirmary, Elia dozes for a moment against a column, waking with a start as a patient cries out. Lucia, the doctor, moves among the wounded, her hands deft and confident even in the flickering torchlight. She encourages Elia to rest, but Elia shakes her head. I can sleep when there's less pain in the world. Lucia gives her a tired smile. If everyone waited for that, we'd all be insomniacs. She sits beside Elia, and for a few precious moments, they share quiet stories of Naples, of childhood memories, of favorite foods and festivals. For a while, it almost feels normal. Farther away, Marcellus the teacher sits beneath a spreading fig tree, surrounded by children and a few anxious mothers. He reads by moonlight from a battered scroll, no longer Virgil, but the fables of Aesop. His voice is steady, soothing, drawing laughter and even a few gasps of wonder from his audience. For these brief minutes, the children are not refugees but listeners, lost in tales of clever foxes and slow tortoises. Elsewhere, Sabina the baker's widow walks the perimeter of the forum, offering leftover bread and honey to anyone hungry enough to ask. Her face, though lined with grief, is gentle, and her soft voice reassures the youngest children. Eat, she says, pressing a slice into a shaking hand. One day, the world will taste sweet again, yet not everyone sleeps or finds comfort. Tensions simmer just beneath the surface. In a corner of the forum, a group of Stabian youths argue with a refugee boy over a dropped coin. Voices rise. A scuffle nearly breaks out. It is only the intervention of a stern matron and a quick-thinking priest that keeps the peace. But the warning is clear. Fear can breed suspicion, even hatred, and the memory of lost homes can turn even the gentle cruel. By midnight, the city is wrapped in uneasy quiet. Fires burn low, the last laughter fades. Elia, unable to sleep, slips from her blanket and walks toward the harbor. There she finds others staring out at the dark sea. Fishermen, a silent line of soldiers, a handful of mothers clutching their infants. The moon hangs over the bay, painting the water with silver and gold, a beauty so intense it makes her chest ache. For a moment, the world seems paused between tragedy and hope. Standing on the shore, Elia's thoughts drift back to Pompeii. Her mother's laugh, the bustle of the bakery, the familiar rhythms of morning and market. She remembers the faces of neighbors, now scattered, lost, or buried. Tears slip down her cheeks, and she lets them fall. Beside her, an old woman speaks softly, almost as if to herself. The gods have strange plans, but the sea endures, and so must we. Elsewhere in Stabii, Gaius and his father sit back to back, leaning against a cold marble wall. "Do you think we'll ever go home?" Gaius whispers. His father shakes his head, sighs. "Home is where we remember those we've lost, and those we still have. You are my home now, son." Gaius says nothing, but takes comfort in the warmth at his side. Inside the infirmary, Lucia works late into the night, treating the injured and sick. She finds herself thinking of her own lost family in Naples, and for a moment, despair threatens to overwhelm her. Then she hears Elia's soft voice from the other room, singing a lullaby she learned as a child. The melody floats through the darkness, fragile and lovely. Lucia closes her eyes and lets the music carry her through another hour of pain. As dawn approaches, the city stirs. Roosters crow. The first fishermen set out, casting nets into waters dusted with ash. Refugees rouse themselves, shake off sleep, and begin another day of waiting. Waiting for news, for family, for some sign that the world beyond Stabii still exists. In the main square, food is handed out, and a new list of missing loved ones is read aloud. Each name is a prayer, each silence a wound. Yet, through all the hardship, small acts of kindness ripple outward. An old Stabian man gives his cloak to a shivering girl. Children find wildflowers on the hillside, weaving them into garlands for the infirmary. A centurion gives his last coin to a young mother, telling her, "Rome will not forget you." These moments, small and precious, anchor the survivors to hope. As the sun rises over the bay, painting the ruins of Pompeii in soft gold and pink, Elia feels something shift inside her. Grief will always linger, but beneath it, the pulse of life grows stronger. She takes her father's hand and walks toward the future. One step, one breath, one day at a time. The gods may be silent, the mountain may sleep, but Stabii endures. And so, by grace and by grit, will its people. The first rays of sunlight creep into Stabii, brushing away the blue-black shadows of a night thick with dreams and memories. By the docks, the waves lap quietly, as if honoring the hush before the day's work. Smoke still drifts from distant hills, a reminder of what was lost. But the city is waking, not just to the pain of disaster, but to the stubborn need to begin again. Elia rises, her bones aching with the fatigue of days spent in fear and labor. Her father is already up, mending a fishing net for the harbor master in exchange for a basket of olives and bread. All around her, people are trading skills for food, using what they have to scrape together what they need. The old currency of Pompeii, coin, status, connections, has lost much of its value. Here, in the shelter of Stabii, it is the strong back, the clever hands, the willingness to share that keeps hunger at bay. In the temple square, Lucia the doctor sorts through salvaged herbs and bandages, organizing the supplies she fought to save from the chaos. She has become a pillar of the refugee camp, her authority respected, her advice sought after. She moves through the crowd, checking on the sick and wounded, giving quiet encouragement. When she encounters disputes, she settles them with firm words and, when necessary, a sharp slap to the pride. "We are all survivors," she reminds them. "We will not let anger finish what the mountain began." Across town, Marcus the centurion takes stock of his new life. The legionaries he once commanded have scattered. Some await orders, others seek work as bodyguards or porters. Marcus himself has become a liaison between the Stabian magistrates and the refugee leaders, mediating disputes, negotiating rations, and, when tempers flare, reminding everyone that Rome's justice is patient, but not infinite. He finds that his reputation as a soldier wins respect, but his willingness to listen wins allies. He is no longer just a commander, he is a peacemaker. Gaius, who only days before was a baker's apprentice, now finds himself in a different world. Unable to return to the ruined bakery of Pompeii, he volunteers at the docks. His hands, skilled at kneading dough, are put to work carrying sacks of grain and barrels of oil. It is hard, dirty work, but he relishes the camaraderie of men and women joined by necessity. At night, when blisters ache and muscles burn, Gaius dreams of bread, not as it was in Pompeii, but as it could be here, in this new beginning. The children of the refugee camp become the unexpected bridge between old and new. No longer confined to silence and tears, they invent games from bits of wood and discarded rope. They race in the alleys, their laughter piercing the gloom. Marcellus, the teacher, gathers them each morning on the steps of the forum, telling stories that mingle old myth with new reality. He gives each child a nickname: Vulcan for the boy who loves fire, Venus for the girl with the loudest laugh. In these names, in these stories, the children start to reclaim their sense of self. Sabina, the baker's widow, sets up a small table near the marketplace, where she barters bread and sweet cakes for whatever people can spare. A bit of cheese, a handful of nuts, an old cloak. Word spreads quickly. Her loaves are dense and dark, flecked with fennel and honey, and taste of memory and hope. Soon, both locals and refugees gather at her table. They talk about Pompeii, about family lost and found, about the stubborn thread of life that binds them all. A friendship grows between Sabina and a Stabian olive seller, an old man named Fortunatus who lost his own son years ago. They share stories and, for the first time in many days, they share laughter. But the path to unity is not without stumbles. Frustrations simmer. One afternoon, an argument breaks out at the water well. Refugees accused of cutting the line, Stabians accused of hoarding. Words give way to shoves, and only the swift arrival of Marcus and 2 priests prevents a full brawl. The incident leaves the community shaken, but also determined. A council of 10 is formed, 5 locals and 5 refugees, to settle disputes and manage rations. For the first time, the 2 groups have a common voice. In the evenings, as the sky blushes pink and orange over the bay, the people of Stabii and the newcomers gather in small circles. They share the last of the summer wine, sing songs of home, and mourn those still missing. For every tale of loss, there is a tale of bravery. A mother who carried her child for miles, a boy who led his blind grandfather to safety, a fisherman who rescued strangers from the surf. Elia and Gaius find comfort in one another's company. They talk of the lives they once had and the lives they hope to build. They walk by the water, listening to the sounds of the city returning to itself. A smith's hammer on the anvil, a vendor's shout, a flute played softly near the fire. One night, as the moon hangs high over the sea, Lucia invites a group of women to her tent. There, by the light of a single lamp, they weave garlands and share secrets. A Stabian girl teaches Elia a local lullaby. In return, Elia shares a recipe for honey cakes. The exchange is small but meaningful. For the first time, Elia feels she belongs not just to her memories, but to this new place, this new life. In the hills above Stabii, a shepherd who lost all his flock to falling ash finds a single lamb, alive and bleeding in a hidden fold. He brings it to the market where it becomes a symbol, a sign that not everything has been lost, that hope can survive even the worst disaster. As the days lengthen, routines take shape. Children return to lessons. Fields are cleared of ash and replanted. New friendships, new loves, new alliances blossom among the ruins. At dusk, the city gathers for the first festival since the eruption. A feast not of plenty, but of resilience. Torches light the square, music plays, and for a few hours, the shadows recede. Yet, always, there is the memory of what lies beneath the mountain, the promise that disaster can strike again. The people of Stabii do not forget, but they learn, day by day, that survival is not just the absence of death, but the presence of life. They honor the lost not by surrendering to grief, but by building something new from the ashes. As Elia stands in the square, watching children chase fireflies in the twilight, she whispers a silent vow: to live, to love, to remember. The old gods are silent, but her heart is full of prayers. She turns toward her father, her friends, her future. The world has changed forever, but as night falls and the city sleeps beneath the quiet mountain, hope, fragile, defiant, unyielding, rises with the dawn. The morning in Stabii dawns with a sense of uneasy calm. Word spreads fast. Roman officials are coming from Neapolis, sent by the Emperor Titus himself. They have heard tales of the eruption, of the refugee crisis, of chaos and rumors of looting, and now Rome's distant hand stretches to weigh the aftermath. Ilia wakes early, her father already gone to meet with the Provisional Council. Outside, the town square is abuzz. Local magistrates debate nervously. Refugees gather in uneasy knots. Traders discuss whether prices will rise or fall with new Roman intervention. Some welcome the coming order. Others remember only the weight of taxes, conscription, and the cold indifference of distant rulers. Among the refugees, the old wounds begin to ache. Gaius feels it most. He is not a slave nor a Roman citizen, but something between. In Pompeii, his master's bakery gave him protection, even a measure of respect. In Stabii, those old identities matter less. But when the men from Neapolis arrive, shiny togas, hard eyes, imperial seals on their scrolls, Gaius feels their scrutiny like a chill on his skin. The officials make their entrance with practiced drama. They ride fine horses, their guards armored in glinting bronze. Behind them comes a scribe, ink-stained and perpetually frowning, and a physician who claims expertise in treating volcanic afflictions. Townsfolk and refugees alike are summoned to the forum, where the lead official, Lucius Maximus, stands atop the steps and unrolls a scroll. By the command of the divine Emperor Titus, he announces, "Let it be known that all citizens, freedmen, and slaves displaced by the calamity of Pompeii and Herculaneum are hereby subject to the protection and authority of Rome. Looting and violence will be punished. Rations and aid will be distributed at the pleasure of the emperor, and all who refuse to obey the decrees of Rome shall be dealt with accordingly." A murmur ripples through the crowd, half relief, half resentment. Rome's protection is a double-edged sword. Marcus the centurion steps forward to parley with Lucius Maximus. There is a sharp exchange. Marcus defending the efforts of the Stabian Council, Lucius asserting the right of Rome to command. Both men know their roles. Marcus must protect the dignity of his people, Lucius the authority of the empire. Eventually, they agree on a compromise. Rome will provide grain, oil, and coin, but in return, a census will be taken, laborers conscripted for reconstruction, and taxes will resume as soon as possible. For Lucia the doctor, the arrival of the Roman physician brings hope of fresh supplies, but also competition. The imperial doctor dismisses her herbal remedies as country magic and offers powders and potions from the capital. The sick and wounded become a battleground of pride, with Lucia determined to prove her methods are as good as any in Rome. Her reputation among the people, built over weeks of pain and sacrifice, is put to the test. Some whisper that the new doctor favors the wealthy, turning away the poorest with a curl of his lip. Meanwhile, in the marketplace, Sabina and Fortunatus find their humble stall crowded by new rules and taxes. The Roman scribe measures and records every transaction, demanding a share for the emperor's treasury. Traders grumble that even in disaster, Rome never forgets to collect its due. Sabina bites her tongue, but Fortunatus cannot resist a sharp remark. If Rome's gods are so mighty, why did they not silence the mountain? For this, he is fined a silver denarius, his first in months. The children sense the tension. Their laughter dims. Their games become furtive. Marcellus the teacher is warned that all lessons must begin with a prayer for the emperor's health, and that any talk of omens or subversive ideas will not be tolerated. One afternoon, soldiers confiscate a set of carved figurines used in a story about the old gods. The children cry, Marcellus can do nothing. Still, the city endures. Even as Rome's hand closes tighter, the Council of Locals and Refugees continues to meet. They debate how to protect their most vulnerable, orphans, widows, the sick, from being overlooked or exploited. Ilia volunteers to help with the census, using her knowledge of the community to ensure no one is left out. Gaius works long hours at the docks, joining the growing labor force pressed into service. Marcus, ever the diplomat, manages to win a small concession. Families with more than 2 children will receive extra rations. Yet, beneath the surface, resistance ferments. At night, in the shadows, some mutter about the injustice of Rome's demands. Stories circulate about groups who slip away at dusk. Refugees, disgraced soldiers, former slaves, heading toward the hills, seeking a new life beyond the empire's reach. Whispers of banditry and rebellion worry the council. The magistrates fear that Rome will send more soldiers if order is not kept. One evening, after a day of tense negotiations, Lucia returns to her tent to find a note slipped under the flap. It is unsigned, written in hurried Latin. Do not trust the physician from Rome. He seeks more than healing. He asks questions about those who escaped the census, those who may be hiding wealth or secrets. Beware. That night, Ilia and her father discuss whether they should remain in Pompeii. He argues for staying. Here we have shelter, work, and food. Rome's grip may be heavy, but it protects us. Ilia is not so sure. She sees the cracks widening between locals and refugees, between rich and poor, between those who obey and those who resist. The next morning brings another surprise. A small group of freedmen from Herculaneum arrives, ragged and exhausted. They bring news of further devastation, but also of hope. A spring of clean water, a stretch of farmland untouched by ash, an abandoned villa that could house dozens. The council debates whether to send scouts, to seek out new beginnings beyond Pompeii's crowded streets. Gaius dreams again of baking, this time in a place where he can start fresh, perhaps even own his own oven. Sabina wonders if she might open a new stall, away from the emperor's taxes. Lucia prays for wisdom, for strength, for some sign that their struggle is not in vain. In the evenings, the town square fills with muted song. The festival of Vulcanalia approaches, a celebration of fire and renewal, now carrying new meaning in the shadow of the volcano. There is talk of holding a joint feast, locals and refugees together, to honor the lives lost and the future being forged. Children rehearse a small play, with Marcellus directing, their laughter cautiously returning. But as torches flicker and the stars blink above, the threat of Rome's watchful gaze remains. The people of Pompeii must navigate a treacherous path, between survival and rebellion, between gratitude and resentment, between old life and new. Ilia looks at her battered city, at the faces of those who have become her family, and wonders what price they will pay for hope. The days grow longer, the heat pressing down on Pompeii like a hand. Dust lingers in the narrow streets. Each afternoon, refugees gather to hear news from the council, anxious for signs of change. Rome's presence, once a promise of safety, now feels more like a leash. Guards patrol the market and docks. Lucius Maximus, the imperial official, posts new decrees on the forum wall almost daily. Curfews, new taxes, warnings against harboring fugitives. A sense of restlessness creeps through the crowd, whispering at the edge of every conversation. Ilia senses the tension like static in the air. Each morning, she visits the makeshift census office, checking that her neighbors are counted, that none are left off the lists. But she sees the growing anger in the eyes of traders forced to pay Roman tariffs, the fear in the faces of former slaves who know a single mistake could mean punishment or conscription. She watches as the imperial physician, Drusus, moves from tent to tent, ostensibly caring for the sick, but asking pointed questions about families who arrived without papers, about gold rumored to have been smuggled from Pompeii. One evening, the council meets in secret. The magistrates, flanked by Marcus the centurion and Lucia the doctor, debate how to manage the city's growing problems. Reports of theft and missing supplies trouble the leaders. More troubling still are the stories that some refugees, especially the strong, the young, the desperate, have begun slipping away at dusk, heading toward the hills. Marcus argues that Pompeii must hold together, that their only chance is unity. But others, including some native Stabians, grow resentful of the endless needs of the newcomers. Why should we bear the emperor's burdens forever? Demands one merchant. Let them seek their fortune elsewhere if they wish. Gaius listens quietly from the edge of the crowd. He has heard talk of a new settlement, acres of farmland, a spring, and the ruins of an abandoned villa beyond the ash fields. A group of freedmen from Herculaneum has already left to explore, promising to return with news. Some say the road is dangerous, bandits haunt the woods, and wild dogs prowl the hills. Others whisper that the Romans secretly want the most troublesome refugees to disappear. Sabina and Fortunatus, their stalls still under scrutiny by Roman officials, wonder aloud whether they should go too. Fortunatus dreams of land he can call his own, but Sabina is afraid of the wilderness, of losing what little they have built in the months since the eruption, and of what might happen to the sickly old man who relies on her bread each morning. Lucia the doctor is caught between two worlds. The imperial physician increasingly undermines her, dismissing her herbal remedies as superstitious, telling patients to avoid her witchcraft. Yet, more and more people come to Lucia for help, trusting her kindness and experience over Drusus's arrogance. Late one night, Lucia finds a family huddled by her door, a mother and two children, feverish and coughing. They beg her to help, terrified of being reported as plague victims and quarantined by the Romans. Lucia tends their wounds in secret, risking a fine or worse. That same night, a hush falls over the refugee camp. News has come. The freedmen who left for the hills have returned, thin and exhausted but alive. They bring tales of hope and danger, fields that have survived the ash, wild grapes tangled over old stone walls, a villa whose roof still stands, and a spring bubbling fresh and clear. But they also tell of trouble. A band of former soldiers living rough, wary of strangers, of half-burned corpses on the roadside, evidence of violence or disease, and of a Roman patrol encountered by chance, demanding tribute for the right to settle new land. The council meets through the night, debating whether to risk sending a formal expedition. Marcus insists on leading it himself. He will not send others where he will not go. Sabina and Fortunatus, emboldened by the tales of the freedmen, volunteer to go as well. Even Gaius, the baker, asks to join, desperate for a new beginning. Elia, torn between duty to her family and hope for something more, offers to help organize supplies for the journey. As dawn breaks, the city stirs. Rumors run wild. Some say the emperor will reward those who found new settlements. Others fear Rome will punish those who leave Stabii without permission. The imperial officials, hearing of the plans, try to stop the exodus, posting guards at the gates, threatening harsh penalties for anyone caught leaving without a writ. That afternoon, as Marcus and the others prepare, the marketplace erupts in chaos. A group of refugees is caught trying to bribe a guard for passage out. Lucius Maximus arrives in person, his anger thinly veiled. He makes a display of punishing the offenders, public lashings, confiscation of their meager belongings. The crowd recoils in horror, but the message is clear. Rome will not tolerate disorder. In the aftermath, the leaders of the community gather in secret, united by outrage and necessity. Marcus, still bruised from the confrontation, declares they must act now, before the city becomes a prison. Sabina and Fortunatus offer to slip away at night, scouting the road with the help of old friends who know the back paths through the woods. Gaius volunteers to carry bread and water to those waiting in hiding. Lucia, risking her own safety, prepares medicines for the journey. Elia and her father distribute supplies, using trusted contacts to avoid Roman suspicion. That night, under a crescent moon, the first group slips out. They move in silence, hearts pounding, haunted by the thought of imperial patrols and wild animals in the dark. In the city, the refugees left behind hold their breath, praying for word of success. Morning brings no news, only anxious waiting. In the market, Sabina's stall stands empty for the first time in months. Lucia's tent is shuttered, and the children ask where Marcellus the teacher has gone. Elia walks the city in a daze, torn between hope and dread. Finally, as the sun sets on the second day, a runner arrives, dusty, breathless, eyes wide with excitement. The group has reached the villa in the hills. The land is good. The spring is sweet. There are dangers, but it can be done. With courage, with unity, with sacrifice, a new home can be built. The council meets once more. The news is announced in the square. An expedition will be organized, open to any who wish to join. The people of Stabii, battered by ash and fear, rally around a new dream. For the first time since the eruption, hope is stronger than despair. But as Elia looks out over the city, watching families pack their bundles and say quiet goodbyes, she wonders what price they will pay for this chance at freedom. Rome's shadow is long, and their future remains uncertain. The crossroads beckon, one path leading to new beginnings, the other to the old life of hunger and submission. As the stars appear overhead, the people of Stabii choose to walk into the unknown. And in that choice, they begin to reclaim not just their lives, but their destiny. Night clings to the hills beyond Stabii as the expedition gathers in silence at the edge of the city. No torches, no farewells, only whispered prayers, the soft creak of leather straps, and the nervous shifting of feet on gravel. Marcus, the centurion, leads the way, his armor wrapped in cloth to muffle its gleam. Sabina and Fortunatus stand close together, a bundle of bread and olives slung over Fortunatus's shoulder. Gaius, face set with determination, carries a sack of flour and a battered knife. Lucia the healer is last to join, her satchel filled with herbs, bandages, and a precious flask of wine. Behind them, a dozen others, men and women, old and young, even 2 children who refuse to be left behind, move like shadows into the dark. Elia watches from a rooftop, hands clenched, heart hammering. Her father stands beside her, silent, eyes fixed on the procession as it slips away through an olive grove. The city below is unnaturally quiet, the hush of absence more profound than any festival. For a moment, Elia imagines she can see all the way to Pompeii, black and broken beneath the stars. The road north is rough, winding between stands of cypress and fields still gray with ash. Each step carries the group further from safety and deeper into uncertainty. Fortunatus tries to keep spirits up, making quiet jokes about his mother's stew and the lucky bread Sabina baked for the journey. But the others are wary, glancing often over their shoulders. Every owl's hoot, every crack of twig, could be a Roman patrol or a wild animal. They walk quickly, pausing only to let the youngest rest. By dawn, the landscape opens up into wild, unclaimed land. Small farms stand empty, roofs caved in by the weight of ash, fields choked with weeds and half-buried statues. Once, these roads bustled with carts and laughter. Now, the only company is the hush of wind through ruined villas and the distant call of a shepherd's bell. At midday, the group finds the old villa the freedman described. The house is larger than they imagined, though half swallowed by vines. Its walls bear scorch marks from long-ago fires. In the courtyard, a cracked fountain still drips water, and weeds push up through the stone. The spring is real, cool, sweet water gushing from a hollow in the rock. For the first time, the travelers allow themselves to smile. Sabina weeps, pressing muddy hands to her face. They work quickly, sweeping out old rooms, testing shutters, patching a hole in the roof with reeds and broken tiles. Gaius starts a fire, and soon the scent of flatbread rises in the air. Lucia tends to a blistered foot and bandages a cut on Marcus's arm. The children explore, discovering a store of pottery in a locked cellar. In the dusty garden, Fortunatus finds a fig tree with a few stubborn fruits clinging to its branches. But dangers linger. Marcus organizes a watch, sending 2 men to scout the nearest road. They return near sunset, breathless, whispering of riders glimpsed in the distance. 3 men on horseback, armor glinting. Are they bandits or Roman scouts? No one knows, and no one is willing to risk finding out. The group agrees. No fires after dark, no music, no shouts. They eat quietly in the half-light, nerves stretched thin as bowstrings. That night, Sabina shares a tale she heard as a girl. A legend of settlers who fled disaster and built a city where the gods once danced. Maybe the gods will watch over us too, she whispers, voice trembling. Fortunatus squeezes her hand. Others murmur agreement, grasping at hope. Meanwhile, in Stabii, the mood is tense and uncertain. Those who remain wait for word, anxious and divided. Some, like Elia's father, believe the city must endure, that order and Roman law will outlast any storm. Others, inspired by tales of the Exodus, talk of slipping away themselves, forming secret groups to plan future escapes. The authorities react harshly. Lucius Maximus increases patrols, arrests a handful of conspirators, and demands that the council deliver a full list of the city's population each morning. Every absence is noted and punished. Elia finds herself trapped between hope for those who left and fear for those who remain. She helps organize supplies for a second wave, passing secret messages to Lucia and Gaius via trusted children. At the same time, she attends public assemblies where the magistrates repeat Roman warnings. Defiance will not be tolerated. Rome's peace is the only peace. The crowd listens in silence, but Elia sees the sparks of defiance in their eyes. Back at the villa, Marcus struggles to unite the group. The freedmen argue with the old citizens of Stabii over leadership, food, and even the best way to dig a new latrine. Tensions rise as night falls. A boy goes missing, only to be found asleep in the cellar, clutching a broken amphora as a pillow. Lucia calms a frightened woman who believes she's seen ghosts in the orchard. Gaius bakes extra bread, sharing it with the sentries to lift their spirits. As the stars bloom overhead, Fortunatus sneaks out to the spring. He kneels by the water, whispering a prayer, first to the old gods of Pompeii, then to Fortuna, goddess of luck and fate. Grant us a home, he begs. Let us not die in exile. His words drift across the camp. Somewhere, an owl hoots. In the dark, a pair of yellow eyes blinks from the trees. The future, for a moment, feels poised between blessing and curse. In Stabii, Elia lights a candle in her window. It is a signal to any who can see, you are not forgotten. We wait for news. We believe. At the villa, as dawn breaks, The group wakes to birdsong and the soft hush of mist over the hills. Marcus calls a meeting, planning the next steps. Fortifying the house, planting the first seeds, and sending runners back to Pompeii with the news that the way is clear. No one knows what dangers tomorrow will bring. But in this fragile new dawn, the people of Pompeii, Pompeii, and Herculaneum take their first real steps out of history's ashes, and into a world they will build with their own hands. The next days pass in a blur of exhaustion and hope. Word begins to trickle back to Pompeii, first by rumor, then by cautious messengers. The small group has survived. They have found water, food, and shelter. More astonishing still, they have not only endured, but they have begun to thrive. Each morning, as the sun rises over the ruined fields, the settlers gather in the courtyard of the old villa. Marcus, the centurion, stands tall, wounds healing but eyes still sharp. Sabina and Fortunatus prepare the first true meal. A loaf of bread baked with wild herbs, a dish of figs, and even a jug of watered wine. Lucia leads a short prayer, asking protection for the living and peace for the dead. Gaius mends tools, already making plans for the planting of wheat. The children, once silent and fearful, now play in the courtyard. Their laughter is a song in the morning air, a sound that seemed lost forever in the ash and chaos of Pompeii. At night, the group gathers around a small fire. Stories are told of the old city, of the eruption, of narrow escapes and secret hopes. Old wounds are remembered, but no longer define them. Each tale is a thread in the tapestry of a new beginning. From the villa's highest window, Sabina watches the hills turn gold in the evening light. She thinks of all that was lost. Friends, homes, entire streets swallowed by the volcano. But she also thinks of what remains: courage, love, the stubborn will to keep living. In Pompeii, Ilia helps organize a second migration. This time, Lucius Maximus cannot stop them. Too many are willing, too many have lost too much to be cowed by threats. The old magistrate, at last, yields to the inevitable and stands aside as families gather their things and slip away under cover of darkness. By week's end, dozens have joined the little settlement. The villa becomes a village. Old rivalries are set aside in the face of need. The newcomers bring skills and stories of their own. Soon, a new bakery rises. A carpenter's shop hums with the sound of saw and hammer. A simple shrine is built at the spring. Life reclaims the land, slow but certain, root by stubborn root. But memory lingers. On the first anniversary of the eruption, the entire village gathers at dawn. They walk together up a nearby hill, from which, on a clear day, the broken skeleton of Pompeii can just be glimpsed on the horizon. There, Sabina leads a moment of silence. Some pray, some weep, all remember. Then, one by one, they offer thanks, not just to the gods, but to one another. For kindness shown, for courage shared, for the simple miracle of surviving together. As the sun climbs higher, laughter returns. Children race down the hillside, their shouts echoing through the olive groves. Old men share wine. Women braid flowers into each other's hair. Marcus, once a soldier with no home, stands with Fortunatus and Gaius, watching the village bustle below. Perhaps, he says quietly, we are Romans still, but now we are something more. We are survivors. Night falls gently, the stars bright above this new home. The pain of Pompeii does not vanish, but it is woven into the foundation of what comes next. A city not of marble and empire, but of shared memory and stubborn hope. And so the story ends, as all stories must. Not with a final victory, not with forgetting, but with the quiet promise that, in the ashes of disaster, life and love will always find a way. Thank you, friends, for joining me on this journey. Walking the last streets of Pompeii, feeling the ash fall, and seeing a new world rise from the darkness. If you've been moved by these voices, by Sabina, Fortunatus, Marcus, Lucia, Gaius, and Ilia, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what story from history you want to explore next. And if you believe that even in the darkest night there's hope for a new dawn, please subscribe, leave a like, and share this with anyone who still dreams of ancient worlds. It means more than you can know. Until our next adventure, stay curious, stay kind, and never stop searching for the voices of the past, because their courage and love might just change the future. Good night, and thank you for listening.